Hello, friends. I'm Claire. I'm an art witch and an artist, and I wanted to do a little grimoire with me today. And I thought it would be interesting in this spooky liminal season of ours to do a self necromancy spell. So, first, I'm going to introduce you to my book. If you've seen my last grimoire with me, you would have seen a brief introduction to this book. It's a book I bound myself. The ribbon is to hide my sins of bookbinding because I'm very new to bookbinding. And we're just going to get a brief introduction to her before we pick a spread to contain our self necromancy spell. I've been thinking about doing this for a while. So, necromancy, as I'm referring to it, is referring to speaking to the dead. So, I am going to speak to dead versions of myself, whether that means uh, past versions of myself that no longer exist, or versions of myself that have never existed, or maybe I'm trying to speak into the future, my future dead self, and page about death, and just learn about that, a little bit of shadow work. I don't know if I've seen anyone else do something like this before, uh, but I've been working in this book since last year. I bound this last year for Molly Roberts' Strange Magic, and I have been working in it very, very slowly ever since. It holds all of my baneful herbs, my curses. I don't have any curses in here yet, but it would hold my curses if I had any. And anything dark, like a discussion of evil witches. I did this on my own recently, and I thought it was so fun to explore the evil witch archetype of cinema and books. Yes. So, the last signature is the most empty signature. There are 3 signatures in this book. It's made up of a variety of materials. I have watercolor papers, I have mixed media, I have construction, I have vintage papers that are a little bit crispy and falling apart. And we're just going to pick a spread to hold my self necromancy spell. This is this ancestor spread that I'm working on, and I think this might be perfect. I recently made some black walnut ink from the walnuts I gathered in the cemetery behind my house, and this is lovely. Look at this ink stain that I have here. And it looks like I had some red paint on my hands at one point and I stamped my hand on the page. This construction paper is vintage and it was sitting in the Arizona desert for about 2 decades. So it's got this lovely, I don't like faded edge, browned edge. It looks like the next page is a bone mandala. You probably saw this on my Instagram. If you follow me there, you should. I'm Galaxy Coop everywhere on the internet, and I do art and witchcraft and art witchcraft. Yes, so I think that spread will be my go-to. You can see I have some spreads I haven't even touched with a drop of paint yet in this last signature. Uh, and it's ready. I'm ready to add to it. And I think this spread here, find it again, will be just perfect for our purposes. So I'm going to gather some ephemera and some materials and also do a little bit of research on how I want to conduct
So
this
I'm going to
spell.
go through the spell with you while I make this envelope. It might be a little frazzled, but that's okay. So, what I did for this spell is I decided to do some classic divination. So this little envelope is going to contain the herbs that I sprinkled into my candle's flame to help bring forth the spirit of the dead version of myself that I was speaking to. And this is just a waxed paper envelope. I have them because I wanted an alternative to plastic envelopes for shipping my artwork in. And they are slightly transparent, which I think is really fun for art projects as well. So I'm just going to ink this and add some watercolor and texture. And I have this textured packaging paper that I eventually attached to the envelope. I also added spatter and a very fun technique of throwing a watercolor soaked cotton ball at your subject. I learned that in Molly Roberts' Strange Magic course, and it's been one of my favorite techniques since. It is so fun, so freeing. So, the divination session, I set my sacred space as I typically do. I had incense and a black candle burning. I also had a grounding thing for afterwards. I always ground with food, so I had some chocolate and some sweet tea to go with the end of the ritual. I did a chant to call in the spirit, and I sprinkled my mugwort and my wormwood onto the candle's flame. You could use whatever divinatory tool you like. I chose an oracle deck and I chose the embroidered graveyard oracle one because it's absolutely gorgeous and so appropriate for this subject. It is designed with spirit communication or insight in mind, which is this is kind of both. And I just thought it was the perfect deck, but you can use whatever. And so once I called in the spirit of the dead version of myself, I asked her 3 questions and I drew 4 cards for this divination session. And the first question was, who are you? What dead version of myself are you? Um, the next question is, why did you die? Why are you no longer with us? And then the last question is, what advice can you give me? And from that advice, you can choose to resurrect and do some more pop culture style necromancy to necromance those parts of yourself that need to be reborn, which is so, so very fun. So let's draw our attention to the page here. I did some vine charcoal squiggles that I buffed out with my finger, not pictured. I also added some gray chalk pastel pencil as well, and a little bit of watercolor spatter to add more interest and make it match the envelope that I am adding to this thread. Yes, and it was very fun. This is my first time using a vine charcoal, and I really enjoyed using it. I enjoyed how it felt in the hand and how it marked paper. I'm excited to use it more in the future. So, what advice did I get? Who did I contact? And the first card I drew for Who Are You uh, was the Sister card, and the card depicts a little girl with a pink dress on holding out a stuffed animal. And this card, to me, on my initial read of it, was this shy, reserved, and very kind and gentle child that I was, but I was very, very young. So I was in contact with the dead child version of myself, the part of myself that was soft and shy and loved pink and was so kind and desperate for less conflict to exist. And I feel that. And the guidebook said that she was offering her stuffed animal out to the current version of myself. she was offering me that comfort because I clearly needed it more than her. And I'm gonna tear up. My beloved cat just passed away last week, and I am still so heartbroken about it. He was such an emotional support, such a sweet cat. I He was so loved. He was just my baby. He was my baby, and my friend and me and my partner are really heartbroken about it. So it was interesting to see that card come up, um, and that the spirit version, the child version of myself, was acknowledging that grief. Um, so the next card, why did you die? I drew the present. So she died because of the passage of time, because of reality, realities of life, the fact that I had to abandon some of the shyness or some of the kindness to kind of get through adult life. So I have another envelope that I decorated similarly. I'm going to add to the page. I did the same technique with the packaging on the side here with the watercolor to make it all crispy and interesting. And if the reading was much creepier, it would have been better. I had some very spooky imagery set aside for this spread that I ended up not using because the spirit I called forth was a very gentle spirit. Uh, since this pocket is going to go over this page, I decided to add some more magic by hiding a sigil under here. And this is to allow the dead to communicate. The third eye is open, and they are radiating their communications out towards me. And again, this is just another wax paper envelope that I've addressed in a similar way as the other smaller envelope that will be secured on top of it with a paperclip. So I asked her why she died, and then finally, what advice do you have for me? What part of you should I resurrect into my current self? The first card was the lovers. The second card was death. Um, and the lover's card has a beautiful rainbow heart on it, and it was about self love, about embracing yourself, being kinder to yourself. And I think she is so right that I need some of that. We all need some of that. And the second one was dance, which was being present in my body and embracing life and doing things that bring me joy that she wasn't able to do. But to like really feel at home in my body is what she wanted for me. So it was very strong communications from this child spirit of mine. On top of this envelope, since this communication was a little cutesier, I went cutesier with my decorations on the page. So I took this vintage witch illustration from a postcard and I turned her pumpkin into like a communicating crystal ball situation. And I turned her into a skull. And I'm also going to add to her some bats, of course, and a eye stamp to the middle of her forehead to kind of mirror that eye we had on the sigil on the back side of the envelope that you can no longer see to kind of repeat that symbolism. And I think it turned out pretty cute. It's actually like the perfect size. And the bats. Yes, the bats. The bats will show up again in a little bit. I think this is a really fun way to approach shadow work. A little dark, a little spooky. Here is a die cut of some paper that I did a gel block print on. I have been saving it for a special occasion, and this was just just the occasion. I think it is the perfect thing for this thread. And I just noticed when I glued it down that it has little hearts on it. So, yeah, I'm going to give the witch something to sit on since I cut away the little surface she was sitting on. And I'm using watercolor. It's going to be real transparent. It's going to mix with some of the, I had some Tim Holtz Distress Spray on this envelope. It's going to mix with some of that. That's okay. We're just going for it. And I'm going to add some radiating gel pen. I almost told myself not to use glitter at all on this spread, but that's just not me. I had to add glitter. It's a requirement for art magic. And I wanted to bring in more of that glitter gel pen and kind of address this kind of blank edge here with some spooky branching silhouette. Maybe I'm branching back in time and forward in time to speak to myself. So now we're going to uh, mark this page with a symbol. I have this block stamp that I made out of an eraser that has symbols that represent the type of spell. So this is a divination spell. It gets a crystal ball. This is so I can reference my spells more easily when I remember to do it. So the second part of this is a bit of an art magic spell. So what I am doing is I am resurrecting the parts of myself that I left behind that died with that child version of myself. And I thought the perfect thing would be this pretty soft uh, textured piece of paper. It kind of mirrors the like fur on a stuffed animal. And I loved pink as a little girl. I still love pink. But that was something I had to put down because it was definitely not cool to be girly or like pink uh, when and where I grew up. So we're also going to bring in some pink ink just to address the edges, add a little more grunge to it, and brighten it up and soften that down. I'm going to bring in some collage elements. So, first off, the bat. I was a creepy little kid. I loved spooky stories, Goosebumps novels, the Growing Up Creepy TV show. I had a favorite arachnid. I was into the creepy crawlies, and I also really loved cats, even though I was not supposed to. No one in my family liked cats because we were all allergic. And now I have three cats, and I'm mourning the loss of one, which is not something I ever thought I would do. Um, yeah. Anyways, we're going to create a little garden of kindness that she has cultivated. And the little girl image, I found a sticker. She's got two kittens in her pocket and a third cat walking away from her. I thought maybe that could represent my Boris walking on to the next life, um, or could represent an older version of myself coming in to care for the kitten version of myself. But here I added more glitter watercolors. And I'm going to give you a few tips for glitter watercolors while we're here since I haven't made a full video on that yet. My number one tip for glitter iridescent mica pigment watercolors is to let them soak way longer than you would a traditional watercolor, like 5 minutes to activate the pigment. And if you're painting on a non-traditional surface, you need to get them really, really thick. Um, and they're gonna naturally be thicker than a traditional watercolor paint because of the type of pigment they are and how they have to be bound. Making sure your paint is really, really thick when you're painting on non-traditional surfaces will really help your situation and help you paint more easily. So I just cut out the sticker. These stickers do not stick very well, so I have to add glue to them. That's okay. I'm fussy cutting it just to remove some of that sticker outline because I didn't want it. I wanted my little hope, peace, kindness garden to show through. I think this is a really fun. This was really fun, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it when I did. Now we get to bring it all together. So I want to repeat some of the elements to add some cohesiveness. So I added watercolor, some of the same glitter plants to this little side ribbon trash packaging that's so crispy and crunchy. And I'm not being perfect about it. I know it's not a flat surface, and I'm not going to get beautiful, perfect leaves. So we're just going to add a title to this thread. I wrote down the process that I explained to you on the page, and I wrote some notes about the self-resurrection necromancy that I was going to conduct on the back of the little card we made together. And I will show you some final shots of this very fun and spooky process. If you decide to try this, please let me know how it goes, or if you like this sort of grimoire with me, where I also walk you through the ritual and spell work that the grimoire contains. I think it fits so well into my spooky grimoire. Here is the final card of the resurrected child version of myself, carrying in her garden of kindness with her cats and her little kittens, and of course the creepy crawly bats. And it's super sparkly, as it should be. The back is also written in gel pen, so it's also sparkly. And then here is the card. I made this a bit ago. This was pre-made with some of my bone and key stamps. And this is the chant I wrote. You can pause to read it. This is the chant I did over the candle before I started the divination and the shuffling of my cards. And I thought it fit the spread very well. You can always pre-make a bunch of things and add them to your spreads as they fit in and maybe adjust them just a little bit. And here's the envelope. I did add a little bit of white cedar because of its associations with the dead. The white cedar is from the cemetery, and I filled it with my herbs for the next time I want to conduct this divination shadow work session. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. I'm much more active over there, and you will get to see all of the things I'm up to all the time. Thank you so much for watching.